Hello, Lawyer Forward audience. I'm Mike Whalen. You probably know that by now. We're doing these recordings, these videos for the Lawyer Forward Virtual Conference 2020. Remember that we're going to put in the Facebook group, the Lawyer Forward Facebook group, watch parties to go back and watch these videos. So if you're watching this before those Facebook group interactions, make sure to find them. If you're watching it after, go check out the Facebook group. That's where we're going to be pinging around ideas. Mike is going to be available in the group, as with all our speakers, at different points during the watch parties to answer questions or bounce around ideas. So today we are talking about Google My Business. I'm with my friend Mike Ramsey from Nifty Marketing. It is a legal marketing company. Mike, how are you today in the apocalypse?
I'm doing very well. Idaho is a wonderful place to be for this. We were practicing social isolation far before it was a thing.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I hate living in suburbia, but right now I love living in suburbia because we can go outside and there's really nobody else, which is nice. So today we are talking about Google My Business stuff. You've got a lot to talk about, so I will turn it to you however you want to move forward. I might interrupt you, so I can't throw things at you in this context, but I might wave or hand gestures. No gang signs, but
Okay.
all right. What do you got to tell us,
Awesome.
buddy?
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen right now and just give me 1 second there. You should be seeing my desktop.
I am seeing the screen playing, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so as mentioned, Mike Ramsey, I'm the founder of Nifty Marketing. We're out of Idaho, and we work with law firms. So interesting times during this whole COVID-19 situation. So I'm going to start out and just share with you a story, and that's this. So there was a company, and their name was Google, and they started in the 90s, and they wanted to give give the world better information than all the other search engines, and they came up with an algorithm that they thought would be better, and they also came up with a mantra that was "Don't be evil." They looked at information and the importance of it, and I know that the two founders really believed in this message as they started out. So they added this to across their company. It became the motto. They put it on their buildings and everything else. Don't be evil, and then they got to where they own 90% of all, website search traffic worldwide. And with that, all of a sudden, some interesting things started to happen, like this. Google removes "Don't be evil" clause from their code of conduct. Okay. And these are specifically in the code of conduct, the things that were removed. I underlined them. So "Don't be evil." And then they said, it used to be about providing our users unbiased access to information. So they took out the unbiased part. And then they said also that it was important for them to follow the law and act honorably. All of those areas were removed. I think that's quite interesting. And then we land in today's world, right? These are stories just recently, and you can see almost every state's investigating Google for monopolistic behavior. Google accused by top U.S. general and senator of supporting Chinese instead of U.S. military, and then there's pieces, and I'm not going to go out here and claim any level on politics, but clearly there's been some big changes that have happened that have pushed Google in different directions in the world scope and in our nation scope as far as their information and the power that they have. Okay. So here's kind of what lawyers are thinking, though. They're like, well, what does this have to do with me right now? And here's what it has to do with you. Google is a corporation, and the only way for a corporation to continue in power is to have enough money to do so, right? So it's important to follow the money and see how they make their money. And this shows their business model. When you look at this is the data from 2017. Sometimes it's hard to find a good example of this, and it's just gone up since now. Or since 2017, but you can see this group here. This is all ad revenue dollars, and they're only making, in all of their other bets, this would include, every other company, just all other things that they're doing, 12%. So they're an ad business. And if they lose their ads, they lose their business. Okay. So that's why in search results, you've seen that we've gone from this look. This was in the original days when Google was amassing users and providing organic, fresh content that was, free on this side for people to show up in and to participate in. And you have the ads, the paid ads over right by our heads. And now here's what it looks like. When you do a search, this is for search for immigration lawyer in San Diego. You have local service ads. Okay. Then you have ads. Then you have more ads. Then you have local results. Also a Google product, even though it shows businesses there. And sometimes the first one can be an ad. And then you have more local results as you scroll down. So by this point, your finger's tired. And then you hit organic listings. So it's a dramatic change, when you're looking at this, and it's about a 25-year period that's gone from a very free, don't be evil approach to pay to play. Okay.
Well, and I like that you showed that on the phone as opposed to on the computer, because that geography has just changed, right? People are searching way more on phone, I assume.
Yeah, and so one of the things you'll find fascinating is Google doesn't like sharing mobile data on how many users across the world are using them on mobile. And so you'll still see a lot of desktop data because they dominate the mobile world so much, simply because from a search engine perspective, Google on mobile is like they're far superior on mobile searches. So anyhow, it's quite interesting. And what it comes down to is this: if you aren't playing Google's game, then this is your new home, and here is your new neighbor, right? I mean, it's just like it's really bad. Like you can't avoid Google, no matter what type of model you're trying to build for your law practice.
Right.
And so, what game should you play? Right, that becomes the question. So what game? And the answer is Google My Business. And to understand this, I want to walk you through a problem. And here's the problem. Lawyers tend to think, like, especially as we talk to them about Google, that Google looks at law individually as this area. And so all the problems that Google needs to solve are for lawyers about lawyer problems. Now, let me tell you how Google looks at the world. They look at small businesses. This is one category that they do look at, right? Small businesses. And that is broken up into two categories: brick and mortar businesses and service area businesses. And so service area business would be like potentially a pest control company, a construction company, so on and so forth. Brick and mortar is like a retail shop, that sells baseball cards, or you get a haircut at, or a dentist office. So the problem is law kind of fits somewhere in the middle of that and ends up with the problems of both spaces, because you can serve a wider area. Sometimes you don't serve that in your office, but sometimes you do. And so, like, the problems that lawyers face in Google My Business are not easily fixed, nor does Google look at law as this thing that they need to focus on specifically as they build out the Google My Business product.
So you mean like somebody wouldn't drive across town to find a dry cleaner? Theoretically, somebody would drive across town to find a lawyer, but Google My Business isn't making that differentiation?
No, yeah, exactly. That's right, because it fits in this gray area.
Right.
Service, if it was a fully service area business, I think that's taken into account a little more. But I'll show you some things as we go on that kind of prove this or show this point. So you've got to see from Google's perspective, and then look and say it's not just the United States we're talking about either. We're talking about the world. So small businesses across the world, they're not building the product just for the US. And so does Google trust small business websites, small business information worldwide? And the answer is no, not at all, right? And here's some examples of why. We have websites that look like this still. These are live websites, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I do not believe I would buy a car from this website. Okay.
Well, it's not for idiots, it's for adults.
Yeah, there we go. And and here's a wonderful wrestling site. So this is the homepage, okay? And it says, click here to go to a wrestling homepage. you know, solid work.
Mm.
So
Pretty good
not
click-through rate on that one. Yeah.
exactly. And then, you know, I didn't want to just show other type of businesses. I still wanted to keep with law. So I'll take you to the wonderful country of Germany.
Ah,
And this site here, you know, this is going to win lots and lots of cases. The mustache is on point. I am
yep.
going to say that. I'm a big fan.
I thought that was my dad and Tom
Oh,
Selleck.
nice. All right. So this is what Google sees, right? When you start looking in aggregate, it's not like everybody across small business across the world has great websites. And so they look at it and here's how they think, right? This is the approach. Nice little Judge Judy. So they create this product, Google My Business, right? And the idea is, hey, what if we create a space that we find information and we will allow businesses to share information with us, but we will display it in an easy to understand way, we'll own it, and we'll be able to control the user experience.
Hmm.
And that's Google My Business. That's why they did this. It's because they cannot trust small businesses to be online in a way that's good for users. So we'll dive into this. First and foremost, you need to own your own Google My Business profile. I see this issue a lot where, so here's a law firm, right? Knockvy, it's Knockvy Law. And we manage these. So we're managers, but a lot of times companies will set themselves up as the owner, which is basically like somebody owning your website that's not you.
Hmm.
So make sure you own your own. Okay, so now pull out your phone to all of you who are listening in the future. And I want you to do a search for your law firm. Are you doing this? Are you doing
I'm
this right?
legit doing it right now.
I love it. I love
Not
it.
for my law firm. I mean, I closed mine, but
You can see a big close sign.
actually, it sort of makes me wonder if my law firm still shows up in Rockport. We're gonna find out.
Let me know when you got it.
All right, I'm up.
All right, so I have an example of one friend of mine, Ben Glass Law.
Right.
So here's what you see. Okay, and they do user interface changes all the time, so you might see something slightly different. But anyhow, the one thing you will see is that at the top, you have a picture, you have review data, you have all of these different buttons and updates and, you know, so on and so forth. Where's that information coming from? That is all Google My Business information. Okay. And then after you scroll, you know, and see all of that, this super rich, you know, data, you get down to the website, you know, top results below that. So you have to get through Google My Business to even get down to a website. So this just shows. Now let's look if we do a search instead of for a specific law firm. Let's say we do a search for a category. So this is a search phrase, Las Vegas personal injury attorney. Okay. We have our ads at the top, and then we have what we call a map pack. Usually 3 or 4 listings. One might be an ad, the other 3 might be, or they are organic listings. So here's this a client, Knockvy Injury Law. And then you can actually see his organic listing down below that. But let's say we click on this. I just want to click on the listing like I'd click on any of the other listings on Google. I click on the title of the listing. Where does it take you? Would you say website? You would be wrong. It takes you to this page here, which is like a local search result and business information page for the company that will share all of the review information, will share the hours, the popular times that people visit there or not visit there. It's like all of this information, Q&A, all of these things. To get to the website, you have to click again on the little website button or the little website button before. In other words, they do not want you clicking on the website because they don't know if they can trust the website or not, right? So all of a sudden, all of this information lands here. And what it shows ultimately is Google My Business is your new homepage. It's the homepage to your website. It's your new website.
And it's crazy because the purpose in this is to make a unified professional look, which sort of turns you into a cereal box on the undifferentiated aisle of cereal boxes.
Yeah, commodity, right? You're a commodity at this point. And I think that really, as you look at Google's view of small business, in general, they take this commodity approach
Mm.
where it's like, yeah, if you're not a household known brand, then you're really nothing.
You're a
Like,
dry cleaner, right?
yeah,
Like
you're,
people want the closest.
you're a
They're
dime a dozen,
not
right?
terrible. Yeah.
And so that's this viewpoint, but they do give you some options and some things we'll look at that help you differentiate yourself. So and by no means am I saying websites aren't important. We still pull tons of traffic through websites, but I will say this: over the next 10 years, as you look, you will see the delineation of websites to platforms like this on major search players such as Google, Facebook. They have Facebook pages. We're already seeing it in some ways, but I just see, and even through social, that all of these conversations that used to take place on a website are now taking place off websites.
Right.
We went from having blogs with RSS feeds and comments to having those same conversations on social media and Facebook groups, on Instagram, everywhere, right?
Right.
And so it's just, you'll see that same approach with websites. They even have a free website product in Google My Business to build like a cheap website. I don't love it, but like for somebody who doesn't have one, it's better than nothing, right? Okay, so going on. If I had to create, this is funny. This is so I can show you the inside of one. We just moved, and like our road is a brand new road in Burley, Idaho, and so it wasn't showing up on maps and UPS, and nobody could find it. And so I was like, how can I get people here? Well, I could create a Google My Business listing, and so we created one for our actual house called the Ramseys.
Nice.
And then put the address in so people could click on it. And even though there's no road, it shows the pin on the map now, which is nice. So anyhow, you look, and this, if you log in, is what the dashboard looks like. Specifically, some things I'm going to share will here in a little bit will cover coronavirus, COVID-19, and updates that they've made to Google My Business during that time. Yet again, because they can't trust that people will go into their actual websites and update the information, right? So some things that you need to know. One, the title, your business name needs to be exact. And this should be listed how it's listed, like with the state bar. If it's not, like, let's say you stuff a bunch of keywords or something in this title, then it can actually help you rank a little higher, but it's against their guidelines and people will go in and flag it, and then your listing gets shut down. Two, categories. Categories are a big deal. So for a law firm, like here's the name of the law firm. The top choice is called your primary category, and you should not put like lawyer or law firm in that top one. They want what you specifically do. And so if you're personal injury, that's what you do. And then there's like family. Let's say you're a divorce attorney, but you consider yourself a family lawyer, but divorce is like really what you do. There's a category for divorce. And like if you put family in that primary category, the chance of showing up is less than if you put divorce and then family below that. So you have to be very methodical about your categorization as a law firm. If you do them all, then you still want to put whatever your main practice area is in the main category, and then have the other categories, below that. All right. So here's a little update, and it shows, you can see here this main category, right? This I wanted to show this in particular so you can see the importance of having that main category.
Boy, those personal injury attorneys go crazy getting reviews.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I'll show you data in a little bit on reviews as well. This is an update on some of the little features they've put in. Hours or service may differ due to COVID-19. Yet again, they don't trust the data. So you've got to give them trustworthy data. Another thing that we see a lot, and this is important, is phone numbers, phone number usage in here. So usually law firms have way more than one phone number. And I'm talking per location. They might have like 5 or 6 per location because they're tracking this or tracking that or doing whatever. Finally, Google added an option to add a bunch of additional phone numbers. Now, I'll explain why that's important. Google My Business isn't just a profile. It's how Google stores information about entities. So they look at your business as an entity the same way that they would look at like a park or a national monument or something as an entity, and they store all of this information in clusters. Now, clusters of information can be mixed up, or there can be two clusters for the same business because of something like your phone number. Let's say you have 5 phone numbers. They're like, oh, is this 5 different businesses, instead of one? And so anything you can do to make sure that your business name, address, and phone number are consistent across the web is good. But if you're using tracking phone numbers, this is where you add them so that you can show that whole list and it doesn't cause any issue with Google being able to create one cluster for your business as far as, identifying you and showing your authority and so on and so forth. Okay. Next, there's a spot where you can list out all the types of your services along with little descriptions. For law firms, I think this is a very underutilized thing that starts showing how you can not look quite like a commodity and show specific, and you control this content. It's not like you're choosing from a drop down. So it allows you to potentially have some unique offerings and also list prices too.
And presumably everything you're putting in here, I guess, is what you would call index. Like all this stuff is findable through the search engine.
On the listing. Yeah. Now it doesn't help rankings. This in particular, like these services, as of now, they don't affect like if you show up lower or higher or anything like that. But I do look at it and say, this could be the difference between you getting a click and a phone call and not, for sure. Mm-hmm. Right. And then we move over to imagery and photos, videos, etc. They want photos of everything. As you see across the top, it's like, hey, they want your photos, they want customer photos, they want a 360, they want videos, they want interior, exterior, like at work, what does it look like, your team, I mean, everything. So for instance, right now, if you're working from home, and your office is closed, you still need all of those office pictures on here. But how cool would it be for a law firm to snap pictures of their home sets up, their home setup, which shows that they are working at home, right? It's a great spot to be able to share. It's also, I look at this as the, hey, decommoditizing space. Like people want to see the experience, and that can change a lot of things. So for like Nakvi, he puts a lot of his service in the community, things that he's doing across Las Vegas in here. And these are all different videos, client testimonial videos, handouts, like news stuff, like just tons of information.
It's so funny because if I were to go to a new restaurant, I wouldn't do it without looking on Yelp and looking at the pictures inside. But even though that's my behavior, I would never think that somebody would do that for my law firm. But that's sort of irrational. Like people are just doing what I do. You know what I mean?
And they want to understand the experience, and they want to understand the people. Right? Like what truly is the product of a law firm? What's truly the product?
The lawyers, the people, yeah.
The people. Yeah. And so like that's the differentiator. And so you need to push the people. You need to be able to show exactly what it is. Okay. So this is called a Google post, and it can show up in search results. It shows up on your listings. It's quite visible. These posts are kind of like Google's poor attempt at social media after Google Plus failed. RIP Google Plus. But Google Post is interesting. The post can last up to 2 weeks, and it can have high visibility. You also get data on how many people see this in search results. Okay. So we've done all types of different things on sharing about where we're speaking or reviews or different things in here. But one thing that's fascinating is during COVID-19, they added an option to leave a COVID-19 update, right? And they explain a little bit about that. So here's one for Nakvi, right? He's pushing the stay safe Las Vegas messaging across social and everything else. And just letting people know, hey, he's still open. They're able to work from home. Here's, it's just good information. But as people see this, they don't question whether you're still open or running for business or anything else. Like it's obvious. We've been tracking data across the top 50 metros in America as far as the top ranking listings and their usage on all of these things now since 2016. So what we found is currently 25% of those top ranking law firms are using Google Posts, which is still pretty low adoption, right? But compared to 2018, it's up 316%. So this is like a growing trend. And I look at this for a business and I say, hey, you know, looking into the future, Posts is going to be a place where it's your social media Google spot, right? It will be as important as people look at Facebook for information and different things over time, especially as Google continues to make that more prevalent, and they devalue or decentralize or just move to the side your website more. This might be the one spot that you have to share updates and information. Currently, and this is really actually quite weird, reviews do not like if somebody leaves a review right now during COVID-19, it does not show up on your listing, and you can't respond to those reviews either. And I think largely this is due to the fact that Google's monitoring side of this is not working from home because it was outsourced in another country, and those places are shut down, but they don't give outsourced employees access to their internal system. Sure. Right? So like they just shut it down. So you can't gather, or at least, you know, have new reviews showing up currently. Okay, what we found in our study, though, top ranking law firms in this study, they averaged 50 Google reviews, and that was a 78% rise from 2018.
Ish.
Okay, 7 reviews on Yelp, which was no change. That was no change. It was flat. Avvo was up 25%, and law firms, the top ranking law firms, averaged 15. And then Facebook reviews, or they call it recommendations now, was up 19, or the average was 19, and that was a 36% rise. Okay, now I get a lot of questions on like, hey, you know, I have 1 bad review. Is this a deal breaker? No, it's not. Like the perfect place to be is somewhere between about 4.2 to 4.7 on your star rating. If you're a 5.0 with like 1,000 reviews, then I'm just going to think they're all fake. Right. Right. We don't live in a 5-star world. We live in like a 4-point-something world. So don't worry or fret a bad review. Now, there's also a new feature called Q&A that shows up on here, and this is awesome, actually, and it's getting used quite heavily. Google has completely removed this during COVID-19 because so many people had questions over businesses being open or not. Every question was, is your business open? Is this open? They just removed it completely from Google My Business. And you'll see this come back once things settle down and they can monitor it a little closer.
But that Q&A, that's shown on the front in the same place that the updates, like the social updates are? Okay.
And reviews. So like they're testing all of these things. Just look at it like this. Why do people shop at Amazon? Because you get on there, you can see questions and answers, you can see reviews, right, and you can see all the information for a specific product the same way every time. Mm-hmm. They're trying to do that with businesses, like exactly the same.
That's a good analogy. Because like on the really competitive ones, we bought a strainer recently, like a fine mesh strainer, and down at the bottom there were like videos, there were product video, there was this pretty girl sitting there and it's like, this thing is great, and it's this big and it's got all these. It's just, you know, thinking about turning your Google result into an Amazon listing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of work there.
The more that you have that you can share that helps people understand exactly what they're getting, what to expect, if it's good, bad, etc., better. I mean, that's the whole point. Like when I shop Amazon, I look at the best reviews and I look at the worst reviews, and I'm like, can I live with the worst reviews? Can I live with how the business responded to those? Are all these questions answered? And what's interesting on these questions, you can actually respond and write your own questions. You can currently, because they just want the information. So feed your own questions into this and then feed your responses.
Gotcha.
Okay. Currently, 40% of the top ranking law firms have questions on their profiles from either themselves or from other people asking, but only 21% of those were answered, right? It's awful. And there's some wonderful, I mean, this is gold. Like there's some wonderful ones, like this guy here. If he's on, I'm very sorry. This is Texas, this is someone from Texas, but it says this: Look at their Q&A. That people are using it to complain. Absolutely horrible communication. Have not heard from an attorney in 6 months and have been calling. The answer was not them. It was somebody else complaining. They lied about finding my main witness in my car. I mean, this is as bad as it gets. Like, you have to manage this. If you type in their law firm, like, the personal the personal damage that this does to that firm, and the chance of somebody calling them just goes down dramatically.
Yeesh.
Right. And so to me, this starts eliminating fly-by-night law firms that are focusing on like a quick and dirty churn and just, have high numbers. Like, the web neutralizes that with access to information.
Hmm.
And we'll continue to see that. It used to be, it could be hard to find information about a law firm, and so you're just trusting what the website says.
Well, and like this one has 40 reviews and a 3.5. Like, usually with law firms, you'll get 1 or 2 reviews or under 5, and they'll be bad because the bad ones are the only people who leave reviews if you don't ask, right? Like, if you're not affirmatively doing it. This guy's got 40 and a 3.5. Like, this is hard to dismiss. If you're a person looking at this, that looks real.
Uh-huh. And then when you start looking through the Q&As, it's even worse. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's just gone.
Jeez.
So Google My Business, like, you can't ignore it. And here's another point to drive home the future of the importance of this is this, okay? Here's data from Google My Business that shows in a month period that there were 683 actions taken. 344 people went to the website. 121 driving directions, and 213 called directly from Google My Business. Right? So when you start looking at this data, you're like, wow, only half of the people went to the website. Everybody else found exactly what they needed on Google My Business and just took care of it there. And so, like, if that doesn't show you the importance, and knowing that those numbers are going to continue to trend most likely away from your website, then I don't know what else to say. Like, you have to look at this and take it as seriously as you would your own homepage of your website.
Do you guys know what, like, the money actions are? Like, I'm assuming if somebody clicks call you, it's probably a new person. It's probably somebody and I'm assuming if they request directions, they already know you and they're just trying to get to your office. But I could be wrong about that. Do you know what's the money action out of this?
Depending on the type of firm and how they function, right? But I for sure the call is absolutely a very, very big deal, because once you call a law firm, usually you're assigned a different way to communicate, which might be through email or a different phone number, than what's actually listed on the Google My Business listing, or different things. So it's like, when we look at that, we use a call tracking solution called CallRail, and we put a specific CallRail phone number as the main phone number in Google My Business, and then the normal numbers as the additional phone numbers. And that way we can track it. And in CallRail, we can track first-time callers. And so that's one way that we look at it, to pull first-time callers versus like repeat, which would be,
clients. Yeah.
Basically. So here are common questions that I get all the time on Google My Business. One is, well, hey, this sounds great. I want to have one of these, or I have one, but I want more. Can I use a virtual office to get a listing? And the answer to that is no, with a but. If your business rents a temporary virtual office at a different address from your primary business, do not create a page for that location unless it is staffed during your normal business hours by your staff. So, like, this gets into the whole satellite office thing. If you just have a spot and you may use it once in a while to meet somebody, by appointment only, they're saying don't use that. But if you have a spot that's in use, and isn't part of what I would call a virtual office suite, like a Regus, or something like that, then you can set one up if it's staffed. Okay. Can I use the same office as another lawyer? I love this picture, by the way. Uh, this is what it's like me trying to work on my computer with kids at
Yes.
home,
Yep.
working on their COVID-19 homeschool homework.
Yep.
So anyways, the answer to this is, well, it depends, like with most things in search. So it's very common, especially in big cities, where you have centralized law firms in a space. I see this a lot in criminal, where like they're by a courthouse, right? They want to be as close to the courthouse as possible. And so you just have this stack of criminal attorneys really in tight quarters. If you are in the same building as another lawyer that practices the same type of law you do, then one of you will show up in the map results, whoever has the strongest listing, and all of the others in that category are filtered, meaning they just don't even show up.
That top category, the first one that is listed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
So,
any, like
oh,
if you
even any of
if you
those
have
sub.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, like if you're a criminal attorney
Okay.
and there's another criminal attorney and somebody types in Houston criminal attorney, you're both in the same office. Only one will show up and the others will be filtered.
So like one of your identifiers that was listed on that previous slide was like law firm or a lawyer. That's not going to knock you out. It's for the specific practice area
It's
kind of.
that type of thing. And
Okay.
really, yeah, it would, if somebody types in law firm or lawyer
Oh,
overall, like Houston lawyer, it would knock you out. If they search for your brand, they'll still find you.
got it.
But that you wouldn't show up for what we consider like the search terms, like broad search terms like category, criminal, PI, whatever,
Right.
even lawyer, etc. Only by brand. And it's because they want, and yet again, that's because Google's not looking at law any different than they're looking at like these other categories of places. They want to offer diverse options. And let's say you're in a big building downtown, they're like, well, people don't want me to just show 3 results in one building downtown.
Right.
They want results spread around a little bit, coffee shops, etc. But then for lawyers, they just get the brunt end of it. So you need to be very thoughtful at where you put your law office and who else is there in a specific building as far as like other practice areas. Now, if you have a patent attorney and a personal injury attorney, that's totally fine, right? In the same building, or in a space, maybe a shared space where it's like, hey, you have this room, they're 5 doors down, but you share one secretary that you both pay.
Right.
Right. So just something to be mindful about. Is the GMB listing one that I can set up and forget about? Right. And this is a kangaroo just relaxing, which is quite entertaining, actually. The answer to this is no, you can't just set it and forget it, because one, Google posts. Think of this. Every 2 weeks that disappears and you need to be updating that. And that's one of the things that brings you back into it. Two is this shows Google's untrustful approach to small businesses. Businesses close all the time. Things change all the time, and they never update their information. And so Google doesn't trust the information you give them more than other people give them. They look at recency of information as very important. And so let's say you go in and just click resubmit on your data once every couple of weeks, then that data is fresh from you. But let's say a competitor or someone else, either on purpose or unknowingly goes in and changes your phone number because there's edit features that aren't like in your login side. You can go and edit any listing and say, hey, this is closed or blah, 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 blah. Then they'll look at that. And if they're not getting information from a business owner, in a relatively short time, then they trust that data from users that are outside of the ownership of the listing.
Mm.
So very fascinating there. So don't set and forget. Last question, that's probably what I get the most. How do I show up across town or in the city next door in this map pack? Like I want to show up in local results, because that's what people click on, so on and so forth. Okay. This is a kind of a weird looking graph, and I'll explain it. So these blue dots represent law firms in Las Vegas. Okay. And that's where their office is. All of these other little dots represent the position that the law firm ranks in on the phrase car accident attorney when somebody searches on a mobile phone in different locations across the city. So right here, like if they type in car accident attorney and they're really close to this office, guess what? You show up number one. If you're downtown here, you're number 16, right? And this shows something that's hard for lawyers, which is Google's approach to small businesses and how proximity matters so greatly. And people would argue and say, well, proximity doesn't matter as much for a law firm. We just want the best lawyer to work with. We're willing to drive a little further than I would be for a cup of coffee or something like that. So here's what this ultimately changes and what we're starting to see. That, like, it used to be you might have a law firm that has a huge central office if they have a lot of staff and different things, and everything's based out of that one office, and they want to have one office for a city like Las Vegas. Now, all of a sudden, because of how Google's changing the game and everything's becoming super hyper targeted and very much based on location, we're seeing that they want to have, like, hey, we might want 3 or 4 offices across the city.
It's amazing that it's cheaper to pay a couple $1,000s a month in a lease per location than to try to get to the top of Google in some other way, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd rather go pay the lease.
I mean, if you're trying to go after local search, this would be how you had to play it. The only other way to beat this, and this, I mean, think of it. Google's like, yeah, this is great. Hyper targeting, hyper local information. It's what people want, but it also pushes ad dollars for them like crazy.
Sure.
Because now you're outside of the circle you need to be in. And the only way to get in there without opening another office is paying, right? So with that, we'll go into just a couple of specific things we're seeing relating exactly to COVID-19. Across our client list, and we work with a lot of law firms. We're in well over 70% of the states. Organic traffic and leads, and this is kind of cut off because of our heads. I'm going to move that down a little bit. Is down 25% for organic right now, and that's on average. We have some firms that aren't quite there, and we have others that are far worse depending on the state. We've seen California hit very dramatically. Paid traffic is flat. This is paid Google ads, meaning that we're not, like, on average, it's just flat across the board, which makes sense. And I'll explain why here in a minute. And then leads from paid are up 20%. Okay. Interesting data. Here's why. And we'll look at both Facebook and Google on this. Facebook usage is soaring, but online advertising plunges. It's a bad combination. People are pausing their advertising across the board in tons of categories, which means Facebook doesn't make as much money. Google doesn't make as much money. We're seeing the same thing on Google. I'll share that in a minute. So what happens in this case is, okay, right now on Google, for instance, over 50% of all clicks go to paid ads, which is a huge change from when I first started in the industry. It used to be about 15 to 20%, right? And now we're over 50%. And you know, Google's, they're super happy about that. So let's say overall world search volume went down 25% during COVID. Okay. So 25% less searches for various aspects of law. In paid, it was very rare that you were paying enough to capture all of the traffic that was coming through on Google, meaning that you were only showing up for 1 out of every 5 or 6 searches anyways, due to your paid budgets. Okay. So as more and more lawyers pause their ads in fear, then even though it's down 25%, you were only ever gathering, let's say, 10% of the total click traffic anyways. And so you can continue to get the same amount of click traffic. And you can potentially even get it for less money. And there's less competition because there's less advertisers. So it's an interesting thing where right now we're seeing people paying for ads are definitely outpacing anybody that's going after organic. Organic was, hey, you were here, you were getting all, maybe you were gathering 5% of traffic due to your position. but you're still in that position, but there's just less traffic. So you do lose that.
Yeah,
Um,
your messaging might change a little bit. We're
yeah.
doing a session with Jordan Ostroff on how to sort of market goodwill, right? You might not want to do the cowboy hat and the get what you deserve arrow point on these ads, but yeah, but yeah, putting money into some exposure right now, especially if you can lead them to something helpful, right?
Well, yeah, and that's how I look at it. Like the thing that law firms can do specifically right now. One is answer their freaking phones. I'll share this and then talk a little more about that. In this Google one, this company monitors all industries. So in legal, they saw that phone calls have upticked, but 30% are going unanswered.
Mm,
It's insane, right? But like if I'm a law firm right now, the chance of getting, especially from Facebook ads, you're not going to be closing a lot of deals from Facebook ads ever. It's more awareness
mm,
branding, right? Google, there's still stuff to be done in Google. People searching on Google for a divorce attorney right now, or for a criminal attorney, or a PI. Something happened, right? Something happened, and they still need you the same way that they needed you pre-COVID-19.
right.
So that hasn't changed as much on how to convert. But when it comes to your branding ads and awareness ads on Facebook, um, service is a huge, 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 huge opportunity right now. We've seen, like, when we look at Facebook, the way we treat it is it replaces billboard and it replaces TV ads. That's what it should do. The advertising on those platforms. And it's kind of nice right now, because if people aren't on the road, they don't see the billboards. So Facebook becomes a much cheaper billboard anyways.
Mm.
Um, and if you use those to build up your goodwill in the community and also pick up people knowing about you, the way to monitor that is to watch and see what happens to the amount of people who search for you on Google by brand name. And
Right.
so we have law firms that we've done now, 2 years plus of pushing awareness and Facebook branding ads and different things like that. And like, some people would say, well, how many leads did they get from Facebook? And I'm like, well, how many leads did you get from a billboard? People knew about you, and then they remembered you when they needed you. And so it's exactly the same way. So we monitor it by watching and seeing how much brand search increase happens on Google. It's actually a really good way of seeing the effect. And so we've had some law firms that are up like 500% in brand awareness and brand searching for them. So their Google numbers are going through the roof, even though they don't see the conversions happening immediately on Facebook. It's a delayed effect because they're building their brand. So like that's how I look at building building brands and brand awareness on Facebook ads. So and it does work wonders, actually. And because so many people right now are living in fear, and potentially they don't have the funds to manage it due to the hits that they've taken, there is opportunity in those spaces to stand out, and show up, be the brand that's doing goodwill in the community,
Well,
which will
we
pay
need to
for it.
wrap it up just for time. If you can, I'm going to ask you a hard question. If you can unshare your screen so
Okay.
I can see your pretty face, I'm going to ask you a hard question. If I've got 30 minutes, right?
Mhm.
If I've got 30 minutes, an hour to try to improve my findability in the world, where, it looked like 50% of those leads are still coming from websites. There's still activity clicking through the website, but if I've got just like 30 minutes to an hour, would I be better off trying to write a blog post or play the SEO game or whatever, or improving these Google My Business pages?
Google My Business every time. If that's off, it doesn't matter. You can SEO a ton of other stuff. You can do a lot of other things, write content, but you're missing out on people specifically looking for you or your category by just not having the right information there. So even, yeah, I mean, it is the first step I would take at any law firm, every time, in COVID-19 or not, is
Hmm.
making sure that you're accurate and up to date on that information. Then feel free to go out and explore the other universe of marketing opportunities.
Right. So get some quick cash in with the Google My Business stuff, and then use some of those funds to build, wells in other areas. It makes a lot of sense. So if somebody wanted to get your help on that stuff, Mike, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Niftymarketing.com. We have forms all over that page. You can reach out to me directly at mike@niftymarketing.com as well. So
Perfect. This has been very helpful. It's hard to know right now what to work on, and I like the idea that, yes, you could do 10 things, but here's a deep well you're not playing in, and other people are not playing in. So go get some wins real quick. So I appreciate that. Remember, guys, to join in the Facebook group. Look for the watch party for this session. If you've got questions or ideas, you want to ping them around, talk to Mike a little bit, make sure you go to the Facebook group. We'll see you in the next session. Again, Mike, thank you. And have a good day, brother. Thank you.